Hello YouTube, the Eye of Stone here. I'm not going to overdo the introduction this time. We're going to pretty much jump right in, but real quick, I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you and the wonderful year we have had on this channel. 2024 has, of course, had its ups and its downs, as is the want of the world or something like that. But here on the Eye of Stone, we had a good year. I have gotten a lot of videos made, and I have received a lot of positive reinforcement, encouragement, and engagement from all of you. So to celebrate, we're just going to sort of embark upon what is only the second retrospecticus this channel has ever had in 13 years of operation. I have gone back and visited some old classics that newer viewers to this channel may not be familiar with, and I have also decided to add some additional color commentary to more modern undertakings, and I hope you all enjoy it. So with no further ado, we are going to jump right in. Here we go. Here it is, my very first Thief video, Haunts. This is the one that got everything started. Everything that followed on started from this. The moment I saw this the first time after I finished making it, I knew, and don't ask me why, but I knew I was going to be making a lot more Thief videos going forward. Long before I ever started thinking about making gaming videos, between playing the game the way it was supposed to be played, I could have fits of getting into a lot of trouble and having too much fun, having too many guards chasing me. And this could very quickly give rise to dangerous situations. Eventually, I began to learn how to pull reckless, crazy stuff off by being crazy and reckless. If I later on gained some control, it was by not giving a damn what happened. If you want to talk about my development as a YouTuber, then you have to bear in mind that I came of age as a content creator in the early 2010s, right after YouTube's first period had just ended. So this was the time of YTPs and YTPMVs and old school Let's Plays of Amnesia, The Dark Descent. So, my content was not always uniformly serious. Back then, we took a healthy dose of general purpose chaos very seriously, and we had a blast creating it and setting it loose on the internet. And no, I absolutely did not escape without making an AMV of my own. I sometimes wonder whether or not Gen Z and Gen Alpha get AMVs. Was Gen Z in on AMVs, or was that a strictly millennial, a late millennial thing? I don't know. I'm kind of out of touch. But it seems that you don't see AMVs as much anymore now that we have AI art, and now that not everybody is using Windows Movie Maker to express themselves anymore. But I'll tell you what else I did not get out of. I did not get out of redoing my AMV in better quality video software without the watermark and a higher resolution, to include painstakingly recreating every single take from the original project as closely as possible. And again, I had a blast doing it, and I'm proud I did it. Back in the old days when this channel was a lot younger, smaller, and newer, I had been making a series of videos about the hammer haunts that were getting a fair number of views and positive engagement that started as like mini documentaries and sort of AMVs and mutated into the idea of me taking on 3 hammer haunts on expert and taking down all 3 of them without taking a single hit myself. Why I got in my head that I had to do something that crazy, I don't know, but I did. Though I believe we had exchanged a word or two on ttlg.com through thelookingglass.com before we connected here on YouTube. The comments section here on YouTube will reveal the approximate time that Ekmer and I connected and got to work together making Thief videos. It was the beginning of a taffership that has gone on to define both of us as taffers, and we have gotten a dear IRL friendship out of it besides. This began because essentially I had questions and Ekmer had answers, and between my questions and his answers there was a lot of possibility for Thief videos to be made. Now, admittedly, a niche within a niche within a niche of Thief videos, but there's those of us that like that. We like being specialists, I guess. So we embarked upon a series of videos that served to demonstrate how it is you can get to essentially hidden, out of the way, hard to reach places of Thief levels that might seem impossible to get to, but in fact they're not. Sometimes it just requires a lot of persistence. Sometimes there's a trick to it. Sometimes you have to know things ahead of time, like Ekmer knows a great many things ahead of time. And then you have to, translate that knowledge into some actual hands-on skill in-game. So Ekmer and I have always worked very well together, producing a type of content that is greatly interesting and greatly important to both of us. And what you're seeing here now are examples from our first collaborations, our first great age of exploration, as it were. Meanwhile, I was still very much me. I had made the terrible mistake of finishing my graduate degree successfully, and I was out trying to support a family and not getting terribly much creative outlets. However, the collaboration with Ekmer just added a degree of spontaneity to it, and in some sense, I must be a frustrated filmmaker. I should have gone to Hollywood. I really should have. I didn't want our videos to end on a dry note, so I sort of got in the habit of creating these humorous little outros. But in hindsight, it really is interesting that some of my really better big ideas later arose from misunderstandings earlier.
Thy death flies to thee.
So here you can see me going to the trouble to create for myself movement puzzles, which are inane and goofy and essentially in and of themselves accomplish nothing. However, I had to admit that by doing stuff like this regularly and sort of trying to remember, you don't exactly exercise to play computer games in quite the same way that you do to perform a physical sport. Although that right there is actually kind of debatable nowadays. But regardless, once I've pulled off something once, I know I can do it again if I get warmed up. And I began looking at the thief levels in a different way. Things that seemed inadvisable or not really possible didn't seem that way quite so much anymore. And I was, probing and testing and experimenting and trying constantly. What are the actual boundaries? Thief does not keep you on rails. I hear gamers of all ages complaining about, games that make them feel like they're being kept on rails. Well, Thief doesn't keep you on rails, but it's on you to break out of the habit of falling into the same way of completing a level the same way every time, because that's the comfortable shoe. If you try to do things differently, you might pick up a new capability or two. Ekmer and I continued to make videos together. We continued tracking down hard to reach, out of the way places, and we were devising ever more and more creative, off the wall ways to get at them, because the difficulty of reaching these places was getting harder and harder. What you're seeing here is the first crate ramp I ever built that really did serve a direct tactical purpose to very directly get me somewhere specific as quickly as possible. Now, crate stacking and crate ramps is, in the thief world, there's salt that's younger than crate stacking. I would be remiss in this connection if I didn't mention the name of the great Azel, whose crate stacking was legendary and would be beyond belief to the eyes of taffers nowadays who probably haven't seen it. But we were working in that spirit here. The vicissitudes of time, bit rot, and steadily increasing screen resolutions have not been very kind to some of my older videos. It's a bit harder nowadays to make out what we're seeing, but this footage, shot as I went over a wall at the Eastport Seminary in the Thief 2 mission, eavesdropping, tells the story of a trip to another world. Things were beginning to get a little bit eerie. I had this sense of going into a null zone, a region that was and was not Thief. There was some sense of reaching the larger world of the game beyond the confines of the level, and yet at the same time, that was clearly only a partial reality. So where was I? Exploring the levels of Thief in this manner, you come face to face with the road not taken. You can literally examine vestiges of ideas which had been built, or at least had begun to be built, into the level and were abandoned, hidden away, cast aside. They were not outright deleted, so there they remain. There is documentation which is accessible in the game files and elsewhere on the internet, and it might even be suggested by the lore about what was intended for some of these spaces and areas. It's quite a bit of detective work, but it paints a tantalizing picture of what might have been, and thus it broadens your perspective on what is. In this footage, you see me explore the roof of the Hammer Temple in the Thief the Dark Project Thief Gold mission undercover. If you look carefully on the left side of the screen, you will see me walk obliviously by an open window on the upper story of one of the buildings that surrounds the Hammer Temple. I do not notice that that window is open, and that all it would take is one jump and grab, one mantling up, and I could get into that space. However, I didn't notice it, and it was only years later that Ekmer reminded me it could be done, and it was only then that we had to then engage in a big comedy of errors to access an unadulterated mission file of this level, where the unfinished void was still left intact. It had been patched by someone. We had to get it back to actually go in there. Why is this seemingly useless and almost surreally incongruous ladder just standing here, waiting for no one to ever find it? What did the developers originally intend for this area of the level? I personally cannot help myself. I find these questions fascinating, and moments like this one beautiful, if not eerie, and also somehow unsettling. But it keeps me coming back again and again. Every time Ekmer identifies one of these, I go in search of it. By this point, I had really built myself up to a certain level with the sword. And while, I was fine with the bow, I had not yet made a big concerted effort of really trying to push myself with it. So that resulted in a trilogy of videos, studies in archery. The first two videos in that series dealt with Thief, the Metal Age mainly. I believe there's some shots that were taken in Thief the Dark Project, Thief Gold, but generally speaking, I think the emphasis was on Thief 2 because the distances are generally longer in the levels of Thief 2. There's more opportunity to get some long shots. But what you're seeing here is a summary of the third video, which dealt exclusively with Thief Deadly Shadows. And regardless of what the distances actually were from one game to the next, at what distances these shots were really being taken, it was these shots you're seeing summarized here that were really the most satisfying to me for whatever subjective reason. This brings us up to the point in time when Thief 2014 was released. I was very ambivalent based upon what I had read and seen in the previews, but I really made the best effort I could not to judge a book by its cover before I had even read it. And when I finally did start to play it for the first time, it was instantaneously obvious to me that there was a great deal about this game that was off. Is Thief 2014 really Thief? Well, that's a question every Taffer has to answer for themselves. To me, it's just not quite there. Sometimes I felt I was living in a Brand X Assassin's Creed ripoff. Sometimes it felt like this was Thief gone wrong from another universe. Sometimes I got the idea that I was supposed to be playing like Alex and his droogs, indulging in a little bit of good old ultraviolence in a universe that was far more nihilistic, ugly, and hopeless than the world of the city ever was. But I can't deny the fact that like Thief 3 before it, it has also brought a great number of new Taffers into the fold, and for that, I am grateful. I will always count it an insanely awesome win that with Ekmer's research, assistance, and moral support, I was able to master the arcane and obscure art of flare elevatoring. Again, without cheating or modifying the way the level loads or functions in any way, there is a quirk about Thief 2 the Metal Age that allows you to use flares as a kind of magical ladder as you go, which enables you to scale virtually limitless vertical distances in a Thief 2 level. You know, for years I had been tantalized and taunted by Angel Watch in the Thief 2 level Life of the Party. It seemed somehow to be teasing me, out of reach and yet not, until one day it wasn't. And having reached that summit, I still asked myself, is there something I could do to step it up a notch? And turns out there was, because you will the technique of flare elevatoring is tricky, and it's one thing to do it, but it's another thing to scale. I wanted to find out, is it really practical? And I chose another steep drop in the form of this shaft in the level Precious Cargo of Thief 2. And with a lot of concentration, focus, technique, and probably a great deal of luck too, I was able to climb this entire distance using the flare elevatoring technique without saving or loading once. It's like a single mistake was a restart, but I made it. At 42 years of age, your Eye of Stone is beginning to age rapidly. And recently, I have caught myself asking myself, do I still have it? Is my finger work still good enough? Am I still quick enough? Are my reflexes still there? Is the passion still there? Do I have it together still to really be playing these games in top form? You know, if I took down 3 hammer haunts in the past, can I now take down 3 again? Can I take on 4? Or are there still areas, corners, nooks and crannies of this Thief universe, these Thief levels, where Ekmer and I have not yet managed to arrive? Are there still things to be discovered about Thief? Are there challenges to be overcome and new things to try? And as I throw myself at that question, those questions, with some renewed effort recently, I have, to my joy, discovered that the answer to both those questions, to all those questions, you know, whatever middle-aged doubt might threaten, that the answer, all of the above, is a resounding yes. There is still so much more to do in Thief than any one Taffer could ever get to. And I consider that a blessing and the gift of Thief to us that keeps on giving. So I plan to keep on taffing around as long as I can, and I hope everyone else plans to do the same. Even though I have no plans to stop making Thief content going forward, I cannot help but reflect upon the sense of peace that I have from what has already been accomplished. I have made many different kinds of Thief-related videos for various purposes over many years now. However, what follows now are my jumping and climbing stunts, and these are truly the videos I cherish the most. The world of Thief has taught me that the impossible absolutely is doable, with enough stubbornness and the purely criminal intent of a thief. I fell hopelessly in love with climbing to locations which only seemed inaccessible, and taking fatal plunges only to walk away from them with Garrett's ever-steady and confident stride. Isn't it also my own spirit which reaches the summit of a mountain, that I might let go of everything and soar away, all fear and hesitation dissipates. There is only daring and a full commitment. I do these stunts by myself, but I have courage, because I know that I am never truly alone when I play thief. Did you Taffers know that I kept you with me every time I grabbed hold of the rope, and every time I jumped? With all of you by my side, there is nothing we cannot make Garrett do. With the magic of computers, we can achieve and look back upon the alchemy of these moments, and share them with the whole world. And even though the middle-aged adult in me may wonder about life too much for his own good, the Taffer in me hopes that this is how all of you will remember me.